Okay, first thing is going to be the prone leg length analysis. So I'm going to have the patient lay face down. I can have you slide down a little bit for me, please. I'm going to get your feet off there. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the patient's feet 14 inches apart. I'm going to have her resist against me while I try to push in. Good. Have her relax. I'm then going to bring the feet together. I'm going to compare the medial malleoli, and it looks like she has a left short leg. Next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to do a trap fiber analysis. Trap fiber analysis is done by breaking up each side 3/4 inches from the T1 spinous process to the AC joint into 7 areas of equal distances. As I palpate through each of those areas, I'm going to have the patient tell me which of them is most tender. Whenever I find it on one side, I'm going to palpate through the other side and find the most tender point on that end too. Once I have those two pieces of information, I'm going to compare the two tender sides to figure out which of those is the most tender. I'm going to use that to look at my chart, which will tell me exactly where I need to adjust. Now those 7 regions are broken up into corresponding vertebrae. For the cervicals, regions 1 through 7 are the same thing as saying C1 through 7. So region 1 is C1, 2 is 2, 3 is 3, and so forth. For the thoracics, region 1 is T1, 2, and 10. Region 2 is 3, 11, and 12. Region 3 is 4 and 5. And then onward from there is 6, 7, 8, and 9 for the thoracics. The lumbars are broken up into region 3 is L1, 4 is L2, 5 is L3, and so on until 7 is L5. Now to correct for the cervicals, we would go through and do the figure 8. To correct for the thoracics and lumbar, you would take a knife edge contact. So let's say that she was at T4. You would take a knife edge contact and go in an an I to S thrust for the correction. All right, next we're going to be doing heel tension and atlas dural subluxation. So for the heel tension, I'm going to have the patient lay face down. Have you slide down some so you can get your feet off the table. Heel tension has, what was it? I'm going to keep recording. What was it? You start off with dorsiflex. Okay, dorsiflex pedal-liceratus.
And see which one's resistant, and then Achilles.
Okay. All right, so next we're going to be looking at the heel tension and the atlas dural subluxation. For heel tension, I would come behind the patient while they're lying prone. I'm going to wrap the calcaneus with my thumbs, making sure to stay off the Achilles, put pinkies into the feet, put everything else to the side. For the bilateral check, I am going to dorsiflex the feet and look for which foot has more resistance or is the more taut Achilles. If I want to do a single foot, as long as I stay off the Achilles, I do the same thing across the calcaneus and dorsiflexing the foot. And finally, there is the Achilles check, which I would come to the Achilles tendon and I would feel both sides to see which one was tighter. To treat, I would bring the tight foot into dorsiflexion, into flexion, and then I would switch off dorsiflexing and plantar flexing the foot back and forth. Bring it down. Now, next one would be for atlas dural subluxation. So what I would do is I would come back behind the patient, I would traction the feet, I would have her turn her head to the left and to the right. What I should expect to see is when she turns her head to the right leg would get short. When she turns her head to the left leg should get short. In this case, she turned her head to the right, and the right leg did not go short, so I know that she has an atlas subluxation on that side, which needs to be corrected before I can move on. Now, there are 3 things to do to correct that. If you go ahead and turn your head neutral for me. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to, since that was the original short leg side, we're going to traction on the long leg side while the patient grabs the top of the table. So if you go ahead and grab the head of the table there, and I would traction on the long leg side for 5 seconds. The next thing that I would be doing, you could put your hands back down please. Next thing I would be doing is going to the short leg side, of what would typically be the heel tension side that we want. And I would traction that while the patient turned her head to the left and to the right in full range of motion. The last thing that I would do is I would come down and I would dorsiflex both feet to create heel tension. Dorsiflex both feet, creating heel tension, and I would have her hold that, or I'd hold that down for 10 seconds on. Actually, I would have her turn her head to the atlas subluxation side, so turn your head to the right. I would apply dorsiflexion of the feet, I would hold for 10 seconds, and I would relax for 10 seconds, doing that for 3 sets. All right, next is going to be the crest and dollar and an explanation of CAT1 blocking. Now the crest sign is going to be a myogenic sign. To analyze for the crest, you're going to go just lateral to the L4 spinous processes, and you're going to do 2 different things. One is going to be the Davis contractile, and one is going to be the Davis stretch. The Davis contractile is you're going to take your thumbs and you're going to apply medial pressure, feeling for the side that has an increase in tone, which will be labeled the major side. For her, it's on the right side. Next, you're going to go for the dollar sign, which is a neurogenic sign. That is located 2 inches lateral and 3 inches inferior to the PSIS. And you're just going to feel around for both those to see which one has more tone to it. For her, it's going to be the left side. Now before you want to go and correct for them, you want to do CAT1 blocking. CAT1 blocking is going to be to take a pad underneath her. We would go 4 inches above the iliac crest. We would put a sternal roll. Then we would take our blocks. And since she was a short right leg, you would want to insert, you see underneath your hand, you would want to insert 1 block underneath the greater trochanter, superior and oblique, and then the other one would go underneath the ASIS, inferior and oblique. And we would just observe for that to see if it balances out the body. Didn't, we would want to first goad the weak side of those, so I could go to the opposite of the major side and just goad until it felt like it went around and came back to the right tone. We could go down to the other portion on the dollar and goad the weak side as well, which was the right side was the weak side. We have 3 rules whenever we're going to be adjusting, and that's going to be always start with a major, never adjust over a block, and never pull blocks. Now, for the crest, we have 2 corrective maneuvers. That is going to be the iliac roll and the is-tube toggle. We don't want to adjust over the block, and we adjust on the major side first. So you would come in, you can do the iliac roll. You'd come to the other side and do the is-tube toggle. For the dollar sign correction, you're going to come through, and again we have our blocks placed. Dollar sign corrections, there are 2 of them. One is going to be a PSIS toggle, and this is obviously not over the block. Her major side is on the left. PSIS toggle is going to be on the right side for her, and then the other one is going to be the glute scoop. So we'd start with the glute scoop and interlocking the fingers, coming around the glute, and clapping up like this. We come around to the PSIS, and we would do a PSIS toggle. For CAT1, the maximum time is going to be 10 minutes, and your goal here is to balance back the body. Okay, the next portion is going to be for the sacral base. We have her blocked in CAT1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the L5 spinous process. I'm going to have her cough forcibly. I'm going to see exactly which way my thumb moves. If it's a sacral base positive, it would move towards the ceiling. Sacral base negative, it would move towards her head. And a combination of the 2 would be sacral base neutral. If it were sacral base positive, I would have her lift and I would move this block to where both blocks are in a 45-degree angle at the ASIS. And I would apply pressure to the sacral apex while she was inhaling. And I would relax upon exhalation. So she would inhale, I'd apply pressure, exhale, let go. If it was a sacral base negative, I would have both blocks and a 45-degree superior angle at the trochanters. For this one, I would look up, I would have her, I would do, yeah, there we go, that's what it was. I would apply pressure to the sacral base upon exhalation. And I would relax upon inhalation. Now, if it was neutral, I would go in between the trochanters and the ASIS. I would, upon inhalation, I would apply to the apex and the base upon exhalation. I would switch back and forth between the two. And for each of those, I would do them at least 3 to 5 times. Okay, finally for the vasomotor, we have her blocked in CAT1, again with that right short leg. What we're going to do here is we want to relate, we're going to be looking at the spine. She would have an exposed spine for this. After we corrected for the sacral base, we would look for changing in redness and changing in temperature, texture, and all that along the TVPs of her thoracic spine. Where we found that, we would start palpating. We would find out the area that is most tender, and we would relate that back to the cervical spine for the trap fiber analysis. So if she was tender at maybe, say, area 3, which would be T4-5 and C3, I would find the most superior tender spinous of those two. Then I would contact with my index and middle finger at C3, and I would just apply pressure, I to S on the spinous, until I felt moisture along the C3 TVPs. After I did that, I would come with a knife edge contact on that thoracic and do an I to S adjustment.